first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
And hello, everyone. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. There is our live camera perfectly positioned for today. Taking a look there at the Timbers and the Thorns Stadium right there in downtown Portland. And that's pretty important because that's what we're going to be talking about right now. Thank you for joining us. You know, if you're watching, obviously, you found the show. We live stream every weekday on our social media channels, on our website and our apps, live here from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. You'll see things happening behind me. That's because this is where we're making the news, where we're finding out about things and bringing that to you. But right now, something that's very big today is talking about the sale of the Portland Thorns. We know that this was probably forthcoming for a while, but it was announced that the Thorns have been sold to RAJ Sports, RAJ Sports, which is an organization out of Sacramento. They own the Sacramento Kings, among a number of other franchises and different sports organizations down there. And part of their overall group just announced has purchased the Portland Thorns. So we're going to be discussing that, reaction to that, what that means and thoughts about it all right now. Very happy to have Gabby Rosas joining us, who's president of the 107th and the chair of the Riveters Steering Committee. I think I got that right. I know it's written down there. Gabby joining us right now. Really, thank you very much for having some time to talk to us today.
Yeah, no, thank you, Greg, for covering the story. We think it's huge. It's a great opportunity to have something positive to talk about with the club, other than the winning of championships and things like that. But it's been a pretty long road over the last 2 years to get here, and it feels great to hear that news today.
Well, I think your demeanor right there is telling me, you know, about your thoughts on this. So that's, I guess. To start off, and maybe just a little bit of a backstory, since we have a little bit of time to get into it here. I know this has been addressed, but maybe if we can sum up what the concerns were previously with ownership.
Sure. So the Portland Thorns started playing professional soccer in the NWSL in 2013. And we've gone through a few different coaches over the years, but in 2014, 2015, we had a coach named Paul Riley. And he was just a coach for a couple of years, and he left the club in 2015 after the only season the Thorns did not make the playoffs. And we all being the community, the supporters, the fans, the people who buy tickets, we thought, oh, it was because of poor performance. But then an article came out in October of 21 where it was laid out that there were a lot of things going on at the club that we were not aware of, where that coach had a history of sexual abuse of players, so sexual coercion, where we had former players who came forward to the reporters at The Athletic and told their story. And that was really a bombshell that dropped in October. And then from that point forward, it was really about investigations, about the club participating in those investigations, about how leadership was going to react to this news. And the unfortunate thing is that all the leaders who were around in 2015, when they just kind of let Paul Riley go and seemingly swept the problem under the rug, they were still around. People like Gavin Wilkinson and Mike Golub and Merritt Paulson. Then there was an investigation. There were a lot of different investigations being done by U.S. Soccer, by the league itself, by the Players Union, the NWSL Players Association, in 2021 and 2022. And then finally in October of 2022, the U.S. Soccer investigation ended, and Sally Yates published a report. She was the lead investigator on that one. She published a report that basically pointed the finger right back at the Thorns leadership and said, you know, they didn't do a great job. They didn't do what they were supposed to do to protect the players, to protect, these vulnerable athletes from folks in leadership, using their power against them. And subsequently, the Timbers and Thorns fired Gavin Wilkinson, Mike Golub, but Merritt Paulson stayed as the owner, even though he was also mentioned in the report as not doing enough back in 2015. And so uh, Shortly after that report was published, calls to sell the club and for Merritt Paulson to divest, for Peregrine Sports to sell the club and for there to be new leadership for both the Timbers and the Thorns started to really gain momentum. And I think in December of last year, Merritt Paulson announced he would be selling, and that they were looking for a new ownership group, and that really leads us to today. So it's been about 13 months of hemming and hawing and watching this thing try to come together, but we're very excited to see the the fruits of that labor, and for this major milestone today of the announcement of a new ownership group, that Peregrine won't be involved with the Thorns anymore, and looking forward to what the future brings.
Well, with this new ownership group now going to be taking over the Thorns, what are some of the things that I guess you're most excited about with that?
Yeah, so number one, super excited to already hear the RAJ group, or the new investment group, talking about keeping the Thorns in Portland. I think that was the number one concern for folks when the announcement of the sale, or that the club was going to be put up for sale, happened last year, was what if somebody buys it in a different market and it moves? So the commitment to Portland, I think, is our number one main point. I think it's also been really impressive to just kind of read about this new ownership group and the impact that they've been able to have in Sacramento and Stockton with the clubs that they own. And looking at the opportunity here in Portland, the Thorns need a practice facility. The Timbers have had one for as long as they've been in MLS, and it's high time that the Thorns have one that is dedicated and available to those players at all times. So the fact that a lot of these positives are being brought up in interviews and in press releases is really important to really signify real investment and real spending that this group is looking to do.
One of the things, I don't know if this is necessarily unique about Portland, but certainly with the Thorns and 107ist, is some kind of interaction with the club and with ownership to a certain extent, even if it's expressing displeasure with what's going on. Have you spoken to this new ownership group, or have they reached out at all yet?
No, we haven't had any interaction with the new group. We know that the wholesale process was really kept under wraps for, I'm sure, a lot of legal and financial reasons and disclosures and all sorts of different things. But we're the Riveters and the 107s. We're really looking forward to not only meeting this new group, but engaging, helping to really kind of express our love of the sport, of supporting, of the Thorns, of the city. We really want to help tell that story to them because I know that they're probably super invested in the league and in the team and in the players, and we want to bring that supporting side to the table as well, because we've been here just as long, and we certainly want to make sure that this continues to be a place where players thrive and supporters get to express themselves in the stands.
And to that extent, so it sounds like, I mean, certainly you seem to have a positive outlook on this. And do you think that's going to be reflected by the fan base as a whole, that this is a positive moment for the Portland Thorns?
Yeah, I think it's a milestone. It certainly is a positive milestone that we have been looking forward to, and we've known about for, as you mentioned, it's been no secret that this has been a project underway. But I do think that we're cautiously optimistic about what the future brings, and today is really about crossing that milestone, being able to say, hey, where were you when you learned that the Thorns got sold and that they're staying, and that there's this investment group that is really going to pour resources into the Thorns and help keep us as a top class, world class club, and compete with some of the best across the world.
When you look at that too, just from the sports side of things, talking about their ownership group and what they've done. I mean, they've turned the Kings, who, let's be honest, Sacramento Kings of the NBA were terrible, and they've turned them into a legitimate, really, really good club. And that's just one of them. You know, they've got, like you mentioned, they've got other sports groups, they've got other teams, you know, in different leagues, in Stockton, in Sacramento, and they seem to have done a pretty good job. And it seems like the general sentiment from people in Sacramento is that they're pretty pleased with that. So how important do you think that is, just, I guess, that legacy of success in turning things around, not necessarily the Thorns need turned around, but success in making that happen for teams? How important is that to you?
I think that's huge. That they have experience in sports already is really helpful or really powerful. And like you alluded to, you know, the Thorns don't necessarily need the help boosting to get to that next tier. The players for the Thorns are some of the best players in the world. And I think it's really about giving those players now access to resources and world class facilities. I think I read in one of the press releases that, you know, they're planning by 2025 to have the practice facility ready, and I mean that's amazing. In NWSL, there are a few clubs that have kind of maybe caught up or surpassed the Thorns in terms of facilities or, you know, resources for players that have already started building practice facilities specific for their NWSL clubs, and so it feels really great to now have that be a project with a timeline. Um, and it's super, I think, reassuring that they do have that track record of investing, because that's I think where the Thorns have needed the most support, and now hopefully we can see, you know, that investment grow with sponsors and with, you know, maybe additional deals for players or things like that to really again stay competitive in a really, really competitive women's soccer environment across the world, really.
Well, and talking about that too, just NWSL, I mean, the Thorns have been competitive, are always competitive, really. And looking at those from the league standpoint and the growth of the league just over the last several years from where it started to where it is now, do you think this is one of those things that it can help spur like another new era of growth for it?
Potentially. I mean, this year the league is growing with two more clubs. So the Bay has a new club in Salt Lake City. NWSL is returning to that environment. So the NWSL just seems to be on this growth trajectory, which, as a fan of the league, a supporter of the league, that's awesome. But at the same time, you go, okay, well, how many players are there? How are we investing now in the youth programs? How are we investing in growing the next generation of players and making sure that they have the support, the resources, the access to be able to play? It kind of opens up a new Pandora's box of okay, now there are different problems for us to solve rather than just making sure that the league sticks around, because remember there were two failed leagues before NWSL came through. Now it's really how do we grow, how do we sustain, how do we make this the premier league in the world so that the world's best want to come here and are compensated for playing here, and we can compete with European clubs and Mexican clubs and clubs over in Asia for, you know, paying players, those top tier players, to be here.
If you had one thing just to say to the new management group, to the new ownership group, what would that be?
Yeah, so I think we definitely want to engage. We want to, you know, have a conversation about what the vision is, how supporters and how our soccer uh, obsessed community can get involved, and how we can potentially partner on different projects from maybe a volunteer or a nonprofit standpoint, to really make sure that, you know, we are cultivating that soccer experience here in Portland.
Well, Gabby, thank you very much, you know, for joining me to talk about this. It's a pleasure to talk to you and just hear your side of it and just what you're thinking about this. As you mentioned, you know, this is a milestone moment. So no matter how anybody looks at it, this is a big moment here for the Portland Thorns and just for the city. So excited to see where this goes, and it seems like this is a group with a good track record of success. So looking forward to that. And anything else that you want to share?
No, I really am just looking forward to the season now. The NWSL draft is coming up next week. So this was kind of something I was really hoping would happen before the draft so that the new owners can maybe give some direction or some insights into, what type of team we are going to be looking to build this year. But then the season starts. Hopefully we'll have our first home game in March. Schedule's not out yet, but hopefully that'll be coming out here pretty soon. So it's just super exciting and very relieved that the process has hit this milestone.
Great way to start out the new year then.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Gabby, thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining me here. Thanks for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, so talking about that new ownership group, RAJ Sports taking over, and really interesting, big day. Huge thank you to Gabby for joining me. Really nice to have her insight on that. And continuing on here too with the show. So this is Fox 12 Now. This is your first time watching this. We live stream here every weekday. We get to have conversations like this. If it's breaking news, I'll try to get somebody in to discuss it. We're still working on maybe getting a couple more interviews here surrounding what's happening with the Portland Thorns. But if you ever have suggestions for segments, for interviews, for things you want to learn more about that are happening in Portland, that are maybe a little, take a little longer to talk about for a segment like this, like 15, 20 minutes, send me an email. You can send that to Fox12Now, Fox12Now at KPTV.com. That's Fox12Now at KPTV.com, and let me know what it is. I'll see if I can make something like that happen. So appreciate you joining me here. If there is any more breaking news, I will, of course, be back. So wherever you're watching, that's where I'll be. And then our regular news takes over at 4 p.m. for the 4 p.m. news. So that's when we'll hand it off over there. But if something happens in the meantime, I'll be right here.